Have you ever been depressed in your job search? Have you ever felt despair? Have you ever wanted to throw up your hands and say, chuck it all? This is because the job search sucks. There is nothing fun or rewarding or happy making about being engaged in a job search. Some folks are a little bit better at it than others, but most of us just live in the place where everything about it stinks. So here's what you can do if you're in that place of some despair. And the first thing I want you to know about all of this is that this is not your fault. It is tough out there right now. Jobs are really hard to find. You'll see something that looks fabulous. You'll feel like you've done everything right. And then you'll get a thank you, but no thank you email. So the first thing I want to let you know is that if you can figure out a way to do this, try to think of those not as rejections, but as just kind of misses. You haven't done anything wrong in your search. There are probably some things we could do to strengthen your application process, but that doesn't make you flawed. That doesn't mean that you're never going to find anything, and this isn't some kind of moral or ethical judgment about you. It's just rough out there right now. And this is especially true at the moment because we're leading up to a very fraught election and also the holiday season. This all comes together to just make things look hard out there. There aren't very many job postings probably that are appealing to you at the moment. And when there are, you'll find that you might put a bunch of effort into writing your resume, maybe adding a cover letter to it, only to get that super non-specific no thank you email. And it's really frustrating. It's very disconcerting and depressing. So, a couple of things that you can do about this. The first thing I tell people is when you are engaged in a job search, the first stage of it, or you're a finalist, what I recommend you do is to envision each job you're looking for as a book. When you have done everything you can, you are going to close that book and put it on a shelf because that mentality is going to keep you moving forward that little bit more and hopefully keep you from doing too much wheel spinning, right? It's up there, it's on the shelf. You can pull it down as you need it. But for right now, you have put that book away. Obviously, you can think of a different image if there's one you like better. I had someone who liked to imagine balloons that she would float up to the ceiling. Whatever works for you is fine. The idea is you want to make this job that you're applying for something that you can retrieve. You've got some notes on it, you have some feelings about it, but it's out of your line of sight enough that you don't sort of cogitate on it nonstop. The other thing is you can do a bunch of different things to really be sure that you are strengthening your resume and that it's really matching the job description. So you can use sites like JobScan, for instance, to do a quick comparison of your resume and the job posting. This is going to let you know whether or not you're matching the keywords. These resume comparison sites, I should let you know, are pretty literal. They're not super fancy or anything. If you have said the word marketing twice in your resume and it's in the job description, 3 points, those sites are going to give you a subtracted point for not saying it as often as they've said it in the description. But the good news about this is that even after your resume gets past that first level of the applicant tracking system, the screening robot, um, probably the first human who's going to look at it is going to be someone like a recruiter who doesn't deeply understand what you'll be doing in the job, probably has just a bit of a checklist to go down. So it's fine if you are super literal in some of this matching that you do with your application. At some point, we hope it's going to get into the hands of someone who makes the hiring decisions for your role. That person is also then going to want to see particular things in your document, like the jargon that says that you understand this field, and probably some outcomes that relate to what it is you'll be doing in this role. So sites like JobScan, there's other ones, Resume Worded, Resi Match. These can help you out. Resi Match is RESY Match. These can help you really make sure that you're connecting things as much as you can with your application materials. The next thing you can do to kind of keep that despair at bay as you are going through this is intercut different activities here. Yeah, you do have to apply for jobs. And to a certain extent, this application process is a little bit, but it's not quite as big a numbers game as we often think or are told that it is, because ultimately people hire people. And so the intercutting means that if you've kind of reached the point where you can't deal with applying for other jobs, or if you haven't found anything recently that you want to apply for, what you can do is look to build your network a little bit. I know that networking is not everyone's favorite term as we're thinking about this job search process, but try to think of it instead as finding people with whom you would like to build relationships, finding interesting people who can potentially be coworkers and or friends, right? That I think makes it a lot more manageable and it doesn't feel quite so foreign and sort of businessy for a lot of us. Find your people. Who the heck are your people, right? And see if you can come up with ways to connect with them. Obviously, the easiest way to do this is on LinkedIn, but you can also be thinking about interesting people in your life. Who's your mom's best friend? What does your brother's girlfriend do? All those kinds of things are going to be really helpful for you to figure out what some of these jobs that you're potentially looking at are really like and who you can connect with so that you have a greater chance of getting an interview in the process. Now, if you're a finalist in the process, if you've been a finalist several times, and just not gotten the offer, you're going to probably have that always a bridesmaid, never a bride kind of sensation. But here's the thing about that. The fact that you have gotten to that final stage, especially if it's happened repeatedly, tells us that there is a ton that you are doing right in this. In fact, it may be everything. What often happens in these situations is simply that there was another person who barely edged you out in terms of qualifications. But another thing that can happen is that the other person, the person they selected, was perhaps a tiny bit more thoughtful in the process, might have taken the time after the interviews to write individualized thank you notes to them, may have done a better job capturing their experience and relating it to the position that they're applying for. So the things that are outside of your control, if they needed someone who's fluent in French and you only speak Spanish, if you are aware that the other person actually has about a year more experience than you. There's not a ton we can do about that, but we can really embrace your graciousness in the job search. Make sure that you're doing things like writing those thank you letters, like making eye contact, which may be real and in person, or pretend eye contact if you're on camera. Interviewers. Those little things can make a difference. And then the other thing you can do with your job search is try to be really organized with it. And I know that sounds like kind of a trite piece of information, but a lot of us get to the point in the search where we're just feeling kind of desperate. And so we begin to approach it in this really haphazard way, right? We just like hop onto Indeed and start applying for things that we could just apply for. And there's a moment during which that might feel good. Like, look at me go. But ultimately, what you'll find is that you're not being systematic in the approach. You don't even remember what you've applied for. And you're just getting these random feeling rejections from things. So instead, sit down for a moment and really envision what it is you want. And I'm fully aware that for a lot of folks who've been in a search for a long time, what you want is a job. Totally get that. If you need to, explore some stopgap job options. Things like working in a coffee shop, working at a grocery store. Caution with the grocery store, you're going to want to aim for your sort of Trader Joe's kind of stores. Or if your local grocery has a union, because otherwise you can get taken advantage of pretty badly in those situations. But look at what's an option for you for a stopgap. That's going to give you structure to your day, and it's going to give you a little bit of income, and it might even get you benefits depending on the role. It's also just going to let you feel like a contributing member of society again. And psychologically, for a lot of us, that can be really important. But If you're not ready to do that, or if you're not interested in doing that, if you have health concerns that mitigate your potential to do those jobs, all of those kinds of things. Instead, what you can do is sit back, really think about what this job needs to look like, and what kinds of things you're interested in. Write down some notes for yourself, and then envision the kinds of jobs and the kinds of workplaces that you're most interested in. Then, in order to be really organized with this, you're going to create a list either of job titles or of employers and begin to work through who you can find, what kinds of organizations doing that work are in your area, et cetera, and create a structure for yourself so you are applying for 2 or 3 things in a week. Don't make yourself crazy unless you're on unemployment and you have to apply for, I think it's usually 5. If you have leeway, craft your applications more carefully. If you are getting unemployment benefits and you just need to apply for 5 things a week, try to make sure that one of those things or more is something that you're genuinely interested in each week, that you're going to take a little bit more time with the application on, so that you feel just a little bit more of an uplift. And so that if you do get called in for an interview for one of those, you actually feel a little bit more enthusiastic about it. Again, be organized with this. Keep notes, write down what you've applied for. If you can, do a quick grab of the job description of the things that you're more interested in and save that somewhere, because sometimes when they start the interview process, they'll take it down and you won't be able to pop back in and see what it was about the job that excited you to begin with, or to get any of the details so you can anticipate what they might ask you in the interview. So you try to save those and call them really crushingly obvious things when you do that. And take breaks as you need to, because again, this process just stinks. There's so much about it that's demoralizing. So you're going to want to cut those breaks in. You're going to want to approach things differently as you can, have some of those networking conversations with people. And you're going to want to be really, really kind and gentle to yourself as you go through this, because it's just not fun. If you're still struggling, if you're still really not having any luck with this, reach out to a career counselor or coach in your area and at least have a preliminary conversation with that person. Some folks only need that preliminary conversation. Most career counselors offer free sessions at the beginning. They range from 15 minutes to, I offer a full hour. That might be enough to get you on track. You might get a resource or an idea that just gets you like remotivated back up and running. Or you might decide that you actually need to work with someone. If you can't afford to work with someone, then check out your local workforce centers and see if they offer anything like this. Hit the library, see if there are books that are helpful to you, etc. But if you can dig a little bit and find some money to work with a person, there's a good chance that that might actually take you farther. So keep breathing, keep applying, figure out what works for you. Try not to despair too much. It's almost certainly not you. All right. Thanks, everyone. Take care.